All right, I'm going to call the Neary Building Committee OPM Subcommittee meeting to order for May 16, 2023 at 7:02 p.m. I also will acknowledge that this is also posted as a meeting of the Neary Building Committee, given that there is a quorum present of that committee as well for logistical purposes. First order of business is let's start with introduction of our school committee representative, although I'm not sure he requires much of an introduction. But Roger, I guess, welcome to our team. Glad to have you. And I don't know if there's any introductions or words you want to share with the committee before we get rolling.
Just two. Denise, I don't think I've met you, but nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I know everyone else, or they know me, for better or for worse. And I guess I'm just going to say, if you're expecting me to adequately replace Katura, don't. But I'm going to do the best I can. All right.
Fair enough. We're happy to have you on board. With that, I thought, I think just procedurally, we need to technically organize the subcommittee. So given that this will require a organization of, I'm going to have to post with the Neary Building Committee every time this subcommittee meets over the next few months. So we have a few options. Keep current roles, which we actually don't have a vice chair given Katura has left us, or we can elect a chair to run this process. I don't care. I'm not offended either way, but I feel an obligation to raise it so that we can properly let the town clerk know.
If you don't mind, I would love for you to stay just where you are, Jason. You're doing a great job. And I think that it would be good to have the continuity. And if we need a vice chair, I'll step up if I have to for this committee, if we need to.
Any other thoughts? See thumbs up from Andrew. I just need a motion to that effect from someone.
So moved.
Second.
All right. So just to clarify what the motion was to elect myself as chair of the OPM subcommittee and Denise as vice chair of the subcommittee.
Seconded.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Requires a roll call vote. Denise?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Roger?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And I will abstain. So that's a 401 vote. Thank you for your confidence. That'll hopefully keep us moving here. Next is a review of the OPM selection process. So at the culmination of the last Neary Building Committee meeting, I circulated the slides that we received from MSBA regarding kind of the process we're going to undertake here. And I don't intend to go through the slides unless someone had a specific question. And this question will probably be for the collective group of, Becky, Keith, and Greg in terms of any questions you had on how we're going to run through this process. Otherwise, we're going to dive right into our next item, which is the actual RFP. Seeing none, but just want to make sure. All right. My guess is you will have an option as we go through the RFP to raise additional questions. So with that, Becky, I'm going to make you co-host so that you can share the RFP document to the extent we want to make changes here along the way. So everyone has a copy of the RFP. The RFP is a template, as I outlined, from the MSBA. Huge thank you to Becky, Keith, and Greg for taking a first attempt at the red line. I thought it was a great job and a great start to create some conversation. What I will do is what I want to do is we're going to go around and I'll let everyone go through their questions individually. Denise actually has a conflict sooner rather than later tonight, so I'll let her go first. I'm going to hold off on any scheduling questions, right? So there is a schedule when we get deep into the RFP. We'll talk about that at the end and agree on what we want that schedule to be to the extent it's one of the dates we can control. There are certain dates that are beyond our control, but there will be needs for meetings. So I just need to understand general availability as we move through that. But with that, what I think we should do is just go around the horn. Unfortunately, there's not line numbers on this. We're not going to add them in because we're dealing with their template. But just wanted to see who has questions and or comments. And I think it's probably easiest to identify the page and paragraph section that you're looking at. I would assume we're only going to be talking about items that are redlined in here, unless someone saw something in the draft document from the MSBA that would have required a red line that Becky, Keith, and team did not redline. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Jason, I'm actually okay. They at the high school PTO, they already voted, so I got that out of the way. So if I don't get back to them, it's okay.
Okay, I'm
So
still gonna let you
Denise-
go first.
So Denise, does that mean you're president next year?
No, I'm treasurer. I'm filling big shoes. I have big shoes to fill. Wasim is leaving, so I'm stepping in. Crazy as that may seem. Actually, I want to comment. I think that the school department basically did a great job on this. I read it at least 2 times. I understand it a lot better. I had seen it years ago when we did it back when I was in Ashland on the school board. And I think they've done a great job. I really don't have any questions. The point system, I understand. And I understand the tightness of the schedule, but basically I think they did a great job. All the red line edits are great.
Great. I'll go to Andrew next.
I thought it was good. The only part that I was curious was the dollar amount seemed a little premature. But
We have to put something in there. is the
yeah,
problem.
I mean, I just don't want to. I'm not sold that, you know, we may even need a school as big as Neary is today, which would be under 50. Right. So I just don't want to limit us on the lower end that 50 is the bottom end.
I think it's an awfully big range now. I guess, Becky, do you know if we can put at least, or if having a huge range is okay? I mean, given that we have so many scenarios that they're letting us run.
Yeah. And that's where I'm getting at is, I mean, 50 to a 90, that seems high.
I mean, the language does say the estimated total project costs may range from, so it gives us some leeway that if it is lower or if it's,
Okay.
heaven forbid, higher, you know, it does give us some leeway. This is, I think, just an estimate of where we think we might be.
Okay.
I mean, Andrew, is there a number you're comfortable with on the low end?
I don't know. It all depends on how many square foot you need, right? Because it's basically a dollar threshold off of that.
Yeah.
But 40, 35, maybe 30.
I mean, I'd personally be okay with 40. Just to acknowledge that there's probably a renovation component that may be explored.
And that would probably put that into play, Andrew.
Okay.
I-
And again, if we close the school, it might be 90, right? So there's the other side. But you know, if we
Yeah.
keep 4 schools and move the superintendent's office, we might not even need all 60,000 square feet of Neary.
Greg, I see you have your hand raised.
You
Yeah,
mean,
no matter what you put in there, I mean, I think the range can be 40 to 90. I think it's really irrelevant. I think you have to put a number in there, but it's so early on in the process that this is going to change depending on the work moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm stating the obvious.
Yeah, I think my real question is whether or not that range impacts anything or, you know, gets us off track too much. But
This is, I mean, usually OPMs operate on a rates and hours perspective.
correct.
This indicates to them there's going to be work here, no matter what scenario. So you want to attract obviously the right OPMs and get a good enough response such that we have a good selection, right? That we're not forced to go with one person firm, that is less than desirable. But I realize the optics of the numbers, Andrew. I'm not.
Yeah. Again, I think until we get closer, but I understand we need to size it so they know how big of a project we're looking at
Yeah.
or could be looking at.
Greg, do you have another comment or are you good?
No, I would just also add that when we attended the MSBA board meeting, I think the next phase of, I believe it's schematic design for schools that were entering into that phase. They had the average cost per square foot that the projects were falling within. So how we got to the 40 to 90,000, we took an average of the square footage costs of the projects that are underway right now.
Those are what?
They range from 400 to a little under $1,000.
It's a small range. I mean, the public safety building wasn't even 400 per square foot. So, I mean, it was higher than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's close, unfortunately, closer to the top end of the range as opposed to lower, but
Yeah, I was estimating probably at least at 800.
yeah. Roger, you've been patiently waiting. Go ahead.
Before this discussion, as I read it over, I was struck by how wide the range was. Now it's even wider. It was 50 to 90. Now it's 40 to 90. And I'm just sort of, I guess I'm asking, is there confirmation here that the range isn't really a problem, as far as what we put forth to these folks? It's somebody who knows better than I.
They'll tell us, right? If they're offended by the range, this is a draft that goes to the MSBA.
Okay.
They'll tell us. Do I have that right, Becky?
Yes, so we'll submit this, and they'll also be tracking changes on this form. So they'll let us know if there's something they like, if there's something they don't like, or if there's something they'd like us to add. So I would suspect if they see this, they'll come back to us if they have questions.
All right. Andrew, did you have other items other than the range?
I think that's the main one I see right now.
All right. Go to Mark next.
Sure. Thank you for the comments. The redlining helped really define things. Page 4. In that section where it's project objectives, could we define about the 6th bullet point? I just want to make sure it includes enough suitability of the current location for construction of a new school building. What does that entail, or how do you define that?
So the way that I viewed this actually was making sure that wherever the new location was, or wherever the location, like we're talking about potentially building on like the same campus as Neary, making sure that that is the best location for construction if it were to be a construction project. I actually did some research too, looked at some other school districts, RFSs, and that was some language that I borrowed from another neighboring district of ours, because I thought that it would be appropriate based on some of the considerations that we're looking at right now.
I guess my question is, it may be too detailed, but I just want to make sure that this incorporates what's going on below the ground, what's going on with the wetlands, and as far as the school building itself, making sure we've covered the educational needs, making sure that we also cover the health and safety needs, which are going to be a pretty big component of the future building. Does that make sense?
I agree, we need to consider that, but I think that's for the designer, not for the OPM.
I get it. But I think the OPM needs to have some background. I mean, we're looking at LEED just below this and a green building. I think we need some background on some of those other issues. So at least we've got a professional that can help us explore those.
So Mark, are you thinking something like, including but not limited to like environmental review, site plan, traffic studies, like, kind of like what you would look for in a suitability study?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just, adding a couple of those types of usual, site plan review, lid, the usual planning board stuff, Jason, with maybe some traffic study stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just want to make sure the person is qualified to know the importance of all of this and has done it in the past.
And I think that's where the MSBA's role comes into this too. I could be wrong with this statement, but I don't think they're going to allow us to select an OPM that doesn't have a track record working with them, which hopefully all of these would have been included in
Right.
any districts. But yeah, I don't see any harm in including this. Does anyone else here?
No. I would just put like including but not limited to, or something like that. So
I have including but not limited to site plan review, traffic study, environmental review. Was there something else that you had mentioned?
I had also mentioned, along with the educational side, adding in there health and safety.
I'll wordsmith this tomorrow.
That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Roger?
I thought it was impressive how much work Becky you put into this. I have 4 or 5, and I guess I'd call them typos, which I'm not sure if the draft has been changed since I got it the other morning, and I can either hit them pretty quick or, okay, you want to do it now? Becky and Greg are somewhat familiar that I do this. So on page 2, right where background starts, 3rd or 4th sentence down, it says renovating several schools in rapid succession. It almost looked to me like there should be a period, and then it should start off with Margaret Neary School was not part of the investment. Something should happen there. I'm not sure what.
I think it was already changed on the this version.
All right, so you're saying, well, that's right. So the version that I'm looking at has been changed since the one that I got. Because maybe the ones that I have already been changed. So, all right, so, but is that, so did you just put a "the" in there? Okay. Next one I have is was a little harder for me to I guess this is going to be page 3, and at the top, looks like the second bullet, students have access a state-of-the-art library. Does that still read that way? Maybe that should say access to. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Keep going just a couple bullets past that. And I'm not sure this is right. Professional spaces available for teachers to participate in collaborative learning exercises that increase as opposed to increases. The exercises increase.
Yep.
Now this is the one that I wasn't too sure about, and I'm going down to page 3 still, towards the bottom. Very last section I have on my draft. I'm looking at my draft and not the screen. The site is separated by wetlands and the Margaret A. Neary School half of the lot is 27 acres. So that's what that means? It's the,
I think it should probably be the portion of the lot, maybe. Is that
Yeah.
right, Keith?
Yes, that would probably be a better word.
I'm not sure if somebody's gonna try to do the math on that, but.
There's not really, it's not a half. So
Right.
that's a good point.
Let's see, I may not have a lot after this, so, let's see, no, I understand the point, I had a question, an initial question on points, and then I would answer it myself. I think. Nope, I may be close to done. And I am done. I don't have anything else rolling off my screen here. But all I have.
Great. Go ahead, Keith.
Mark, I just, while you were speaking about your thoughts around site plan and traffic and all that sort of thing, one thing I thought of, which was 2 bullets down, it's called the Northeast Collaborative for High Performance Schools criteria, or
Yeah.
screen, that's on page 4. So it was right on that set of bullet points. That's actually, I never knew what this was until we started getting into this process. A simple Google search shows some pretty interesting criteria that the school would have to follow that goes into a lot of things like air quality, energy efficiency, and things of that nature. So I know it doesn't fall in line with all of your comments, but that's that rating system is it's in there for a reason. I think MSBA does rely on that as their system, and I found both of their websites to be interesting to kind of go through in the things of how they measure and things of that nature. So I think that's going to be a guide for us as we go.
Oh, no, thank you.
Thanks for that, Keith.
Welcome.
So Becky, I think if we can scroll down, full disclosure, I had given Becky my comments before the meeting, just and done an initial preview to make sure we were ready to go. So any of my comments are already in the red line that you saw. So thank you all for those comments. I think what we should do now is briefly discuss the timeline. So Becky, I don't know if you can scroll a little bit down there. And I'm really going to highlight the days that I think require committee action. So there will be some work that our school administration team has to do with the MSBA between this vote tonight and getting it into combis and the various newspaper publications. But I do think we are going to have to meet once we hear back from the MSBA to officially vote as a Neary building committee, not as an OPM subcommittee, if I have my facts right, on the RFS. Does that jive, Becky and Keith, with your understanding?
Yeah, that is consistent with my understanding. Becky, how about you? Do you agree?
I do.
All right. So hopefully it is the quickest meeting we have as a committee, but we don't know what comments they're going to come back with. We don't know when that date is going to be, but we know it's going to be somewhere in the next week or two because this has to get out to the newspapers by first week of June. So I guess on that, I will just alert everyone once we have it, and we'll have to go approximately 48 hours after. We'll do it via Zoom and try to find something that works for this group. Understanding it hopefully will be quick.
Okay.
The next item is the voluntary information meeting and site inspection of the Neary School. I'd welcome the school administration team's thoughts. Is this something you would do without the committee, so that we don't have to deal with open meeting law and all of that? Or how would you propose, if any, action by the committee on that specific date?
I think that would be my understanding, Jason. I don't believe it would require I mean, certainly anyone is welcome from the committee to join, but that's certainly something that Becky and I can facilitate with our facilities manager, Brian Pantoni.
Typically, when we do these site visits, we're walking contractors around the location, giving them a heads up as to what the project is all about, maybe giving them some background, like the work that the committee had done previously, you know, the committee that you had chaired, Jason, and just giving them a little bit more information aside from just this document as to what they're looking at and what they might be, I guess, proposing their services for.
Makes sense to me. So we'll pass over that date. Then on questions, I would presume, based having seen stuff like this in the past, that's something, Becky, that you and Keith would be able to reply to. And obviously, if you need input on something, you would reach out, but likely the type of questions or answers that probably are already in this document that they didn't read fully or need clarification on because they don't understand what we mean by a certain item. Is that fair?
That's typically been our experience, yeah.
Okay. So then magically everything arrives on June 21st at 11 a.m. Obviously, there's no bid, just so everyone's aware, right? There's no bid information here. So there's no pricing. This is all based on the quality of their submission, is how we're going to rate these, as you probably saw from the scoring. So Becky has us shortlisting everyone in a 24-hour time period. So if you actually look at a calendar, we wouldn't actually have access to these documents until, call it midday on the 21st. Right, by the time someone uploads them to some share site, etc. And then we would have to basically meet, compare our scoring. This is going to be a public meeting, and decide who we want to invite for an interview. Somewhat in line with that is 22nd is the last day of school. So I know that impacts some, not all of us, but just pointing that out from looking at the calendar. So I guess the question is, how quickly can people read documents? And then are you available the 22nd, or I'm going to throw out the 23rd as well for a quick discussion. And before I do that, I just want to confirm, Becky, there's no way to have responses due before the 21st based on it has to sit out there for 2 weeks and all of that.
Correct. And these are the dates, actually, the June 7th date and the June 21st date are the dates that were provided by MSBA.
Okay. So I think we need to decide how long people need. These documents are not short based on my experience. And I think we don't know how many we're going to get, right? We could get 2, we could get 5, we could get 20. I think 20 is probably an extreme, but you never know. And we have to adequately spend time with them, score them, because obviously each of these firms are going to spend a lot of time putting something forward. So I think 24 hours is too short, just to be completely honest with you. But also we have to back into letting people know they have an interview and conducting the interviews and doing that before July 4th, because I don't think anyone wants to go anywhere near that week, unless I'm horribly mistaken. I may have a small preference there. So Roger, I see your hand up.
Just a quick question about, we could get 20. That's probably not going to happen. If it should, is there any sort of process that would, I guess, not require every member to read every submittal, but still would give each submittal sorry about that. Give each submittal adequate coverage. Like we've done this a couple of different ways sometimes when in a search committee where not everybody reads every single one, but you kind of I'm not sure. Maybe the only answer is everybody reads every single one, and maybe 20 really, I know you threw it out there, maybe that's
Yeah,
not.
I said
really
that it's
anyway.
probably high. Public safety building, we had 11 in this process.
And with 11, then everyone read everything, is that correct?
Yeah, based on the way we had
Yeah.
advertised it, yeah. And then we shortlisted to 4. But
Okay.
I'll let our procurement professionals answer that. What do you think? 'Cause I think it's a good question.
Yes, I do think that everyone needs to read all of them. I don't think there's any way to break it out because we need to make sure that we're getting the same consistent review across the board. Keith, would you agree?
What?
So if we work backwards to how many people would be willing to interview. So let's just say it's 5. Right? And we need, I mean, I'm okay if we all read them, right, and give our preference, but I don't know if we need to do a full scorecard until after the interviews, which is like Jason, we did for on the other committee, right? So if we stack rank them just basically as of reading them, like we would with resumes, and take the top 5, that's not nearly as heavy of an exercise as going through a full scoring effort.
Back here, Keith, you're gonna have to weigh in there based on how this reads.
So with the shortlisted, you are ranking them, and that's how we're coming up with our shortlist.
Okay.
So there is a process that's involved in that. And then there's a further ranking once we have those. And I think MSBA, and Keith, I can't pull up the actual document, but I think that they have a minimum of 3 that we
They
have
do.
to interview.
Yes.
So we would have a separate rubric for the interviews than what we have for the actual initial screening.
I think-
And to react to your 5, obviously we have to do 3.
Yeah.
We'd have to have 5, in just my personal opinion, we'd have to have 5 really good respondents to like, they'd have to be awesome. Like 5
Yeah,
awesome ones, like, so I'm hopeful it's closer to 3, but I do want to leave the option open. If like,
Yeah.
let's just say you want 3, you want 3 firms, Denise wants 3 firms, and I want 3. Yeah, I'm not excluding anyone else, but like you kind of do it, and we have 4 firms total. I think we'll interview 4 is probably where we land.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get to, do we have to do a full scoring, or can we just literally stack rank them? This is my favorite, this is my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, say there's 10 of them. And we all have, the top 3 or 4 in all of our top 3 or 4, then we go with those 3 or 4, right? Or do we have to go line by line and assess them, on the score chart, or do we do that after we do the interviews?
No, so that rubric that we had outlined, that's going to be it's in the document with the different points. That's what we're going to be ranking them initially on. And so then we'll take those that rank the highest as our top 3 or 4 or whatever we decide to do, and interview those.
So Jason, that's where I see the time. It's going to take a lot of time.
It absolutely is. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, the reason, and I'm just trying to maybe tag on to Andrew's comment. The reason I asked the question in the first place isn't to, I mean, we're going to put in as much work as the time we have, okay? But what happens, I've done these before, when you have a ton of these things, you pay a lot of attention, for a while. And then, you have to finish them, and you just don't pay as much attention when you get to the last group, if you're basically trying to do a complete scoring, if you will, or whatever. So maybe there's no alternative, but that's the practical problem that comes into this process.
So maybe just a suggestion is, what if we committed to shortlisting everyone by that following Monday, which would be June 26th.
Yep.
But we try, like, if everyone's available, we try to do it on the 23rd. But like, we'll know, Becky will be able to say earlier on the week of the 19th, right? She'll say, I have at least 10 in already, right? And we know everyone waits till the last minute too, right? But we will have at least an indicative view of how this is going. And we tentative plan to meet Friday, if there's a small number of respondents, we can define what that is. Or Monday, if there's a large number of respondents, just to give ourselves some wiggle room, and then push back the interview a day or two. Just again, unless they already know the date, they should put it on their calendar and hope they get an invitation to it. That's the other way to look at it. Because then the interviews would be, I guess, Becky, probably at least the 28th at that point. And then I personally don't think the negotiation is going to take that long based on prior experience on that particular topic. They have a rate card. We're going to need to negotiate, something there, but there's not a ton of wiggle room there. But I also don't think you need to negotiate with the respondent by the 30th, other absent the July 4th holiday.
My thought was that the June 30th was the beginning of the negotiations. And
Okay.
that gave us a week or so until July 12th, when we have to submit our final selection to MSBA.
Go ahead, Denise.
So I guess
I can't hear the audio.
I can't hear her either.
the question is to go back to what Roger was
Denise, we're losing
saying.
every other word of yours, unfortunately.
There is no way that we
Can
can,
anyone hear her?
No,
No.
there might be a little
Hold
bit of
on.
an internet problem.
okay, can you hear me? Go, let me sign out and come back in.
Okay, well, that was good.
Okay.
Well, the
Yeah,
last
just-
one you said was good.
You can
Try
try
it
to
again.
on your
Or
video.
sign out.
So I guess my question, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so my question was, are we definitely required to rank all of, if we say we get 20 applicants, do we have to score the 20? Or we cannot do what Andrew suggested is pile them according to our ranking? We do have to score all 20, because I think that's going to be a very difficult, that's when I think you need the most amount of time between that and this, and culling it down to the 3, because it's going to take a long time to do that.
We do need to go through and rank each one. I know it's time consuming, but they want to make sure that we've given
Okay.
each applicant proper,
Okay,
I guess, a proper review, and that we have ranked everyone fairly, and that it's a transparent process.
okay. So I guess I have to agree then. I think the most span of time needs to be when we get those in our hands, and then we sit down and get to.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And Jason, maybe we put in here the time of the meeting on the 28th. So they know that if they're responding to this, that they need to come in, block off some time on the interview if they're selected.
I assume there's a confirmation email that can go out when someone submits it to you, Becky, too, right? So they'll email it into you per the submission or et cetera. You could reply back like, here, as a reminder, here's the interview date, the committee, like, I just don't, is everyone ready to set a time now is I guess my question.
I don't see why not, right, Becky? I mean,
Yeah, I can, whenever I receive a response, I can always send it. It may come electronically, it may come hard copy, but I can send a response to them just saying we've received it. And just a reminder, if you're selected, this is the date of our interviews.
I neglected to say that I did talk to Keith and Becky before this, and I think we all agree the interviews will be done via Zoom, just to give everyone maximum flexibility, given the time of the year.
Yeah, I was thinking if we just set it at, 7 PM again, I think that would work, and just so people know what time it is and if they're responding, that we're expecting them to be there at that time.
Well, yeah, but you have to, so each interview is probably gonna be 45 minutes or so you'd stagger them every hour. So you need to give yourself 4 hours, in my opinion. Just so I think we may have to agree to 6. As much as that's like the witching hour at my house.
Or 6:30. We could do 6:30.
So that means the last interview, if we had 4, would go off at 9:30.
Yeah, I think you need to move it to 6, as much as we don't, I'm thrilled about the whole idea. You've got a lot of work ahead of you that night.
And are we looking towards Wednesday, the 28th? Is that what you said, Andrew, for the interviews?
I think that's what Jason had, but yeah.
Yeah, I added 2 days to basically the committee would have to meet on the 26th.
Yep.
Jason, do we have to meet or can we send in our responses to Becky and have her total them?
We could probably have someone collate them, right? We could probably send it to, I'm cautious of sending them to Becky because she's technically a member, even though she doesn't have a vote. She's a member of the committee, which counts just like anything else from an OML perspective. We could investigate whether we could have a school administrator, like I don't know if there's support staff available at that time of the year, but whether they could just take it and just say, this is what Andrew said, and here's his raw backup. But at the end of the day, I find it shocking if we all came with the same scores. So then there still has to be a discussion of like who, like you may think differently than me, but I may come around through the discussion that I'll go with your firm over where I was on firm 3, so to say.
What I'm saying is, it didn't sound like that was an option. It sounded like it was score based and score based only. And so, we can't be like, oh, well, I agree with you. Let me change my score to this, or I don't know.
I mean, when I've gone through RFQ processes, people have done like an initial review, and then we've gone through each of the rubric points and had conversation, and then it does elicit some, like maybe somebody thought of something that another committee member didn't think of, and then there is the ability to alter or change, your ranking based on, the new information that you've been provided. So we can do like an initial screening of it and then have the conversation. And then I would ask for the final forms after that conversation. And once we've arrived at our final 3 or however many.
It's just going to be a lot of time, Jason, in those 2 meetings. If we're going to need to go score by score on every response, right, that's going to be a 6-hour meeting.
No, well, here, so this is how I did in the past. Is there will be a clear consensus of, like, let's just say you have this, we all have the same number 1 firm. We're not going to even talk about it. Like, there's no need to talk about it. Like, if we're all clear. And then there's also going to be firms that just completely fall off the wayside. Like, they're just nowhere close to the others. And then you're going to have I'll call it a bubble of firms that, are 2, 3, and 4, and 5 on each of ours, but we all have them in different orders. And we need to just, decide between those. So I'm not doing a 6-hour meeting then. I'll be honest. It's probably the worst week of the year for me to do it. But I'm going to do it because it's what we need to do. So I think we can keep it tight as long as everyone's done their homework. And hopefully there's consensus.
Right. Yeah, I think. Right. I think that there'll be some that, the cream will come to the top and we'll say, okay, everybody.
Denise, you are definitely still having audio transmission problems. It doesn't, I wouldn't say every other word, but maybe we get 2 out of 3 words.
And I would try, Denise, just turning your video off so the bandwidth is used.
Did you hear
really no
Andrew?
Yeah, I think
reason
she,
Try to shut the video
to
off.
have to go back and forth. Hopefully.
so Denise, we really didn't hear what you said. All I heard was back and forth.
We do need to do it in a meeting.
Unfortunately, the problem is still there. Sorry.
I heard, unfortunately, we need to do it in a meeting.
Like,
Okay.
All right, so is everyone okay with the 26th?
26th?
For that's going to be where we go over the evaluations.
Yep, that works.
Okay. Does anyone feel like they need less time or more time for that, or they feel like that's the right number?
I think that's the best we could do.
Okay.
Jason, I might have missed it in here. Is there any like cutoff criteria, like if somebody's never done an MSBA property before?
Yeah, Becky's got it.
There's some minimum criteria, Andrew.
Okay, I must have, yeah, I might have missed it. Okay,
I'm afraid I'm making people dizzy by scrolling, so.
Yeah. All right, go. Andrew, you satisfied with that? You want Becky to show you where?
as well, and that was one of my criteria is that they've done an MSBA project before. If that's in there, then I'm good.
That will come out in the references more than anything else. But yeah, look at number 1. Denise, I think you may need to log out and come back in.
Is that
Okay.
All right, so the 26th, the people want an evening meeting or?
Evening.
Okay.
Right.
So that one we can do at 7 potentially. Does that work for everyone?
That works for me.
So then notification would go out first thing on the 27th. But they already would have this calendar hold and they're either accepting it or declining it essentially and getting their slot. All right. Anyone else want to talk about schedules? That was fun. Okay. Then I think at this point, I'm going to make a motion that the OPM subcommittee approve the request for services with the edits discussed this evening and give authorization to Becky and Keith as our MCPPO certified. And they're welcome to consult with the chair to make any Scribner's updates as they do a final pass of this. Is there a second?
Second.
And then just so everyone's aware, assuming we pass this motion, they would submit it to the MSBA by Thursday. And then we will call a meeting after that to review any edits from the MSBA. So this is not what's going out to the street at this point.
Correct.
So any discussion? All right.
all right? So I moved into the dining room. Is this better?
It's better.
Great.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that. It's the router. The distance from my office to the router, I apologize.
Did you hear the motion, Denise?
I did not.
Okay, so I moved that the committee accept the draft RFS that we discussed tonight with the edits that Becky made live and giving Keith and Becky they're welcome to consult with the chair, authorization to make any Scribner's updates as they do a final review of this before submission to the MSBA. That's the motion that's on the floor at this point.
Okay, do you have a second?
I do. So,
Okay.
we're in discussion point. I'm seeing no discussion. So we're gonna do a roll call vote. Roger,
Yes,
Denise,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
and I am I as well. So that passes unanimously. All right, so I think we've talked and Becky, you can stop sharing, I think. Thank you for doing that for us. So do we have any public comment? I'm seeing none. We've already discussed the meeting schedule. My only other business that I will comment on is we continue to be in recruitment mode for the Neary Building Committee overall. My understanding is there have been some applications that have come in, but I know at least Roger, what I heard from the school committee was your intent was to obviously give the select board some choice on the at-large members. So to the extent you know people in the community that may be of an asset to us and have the requisite background, certainly encourage them to apply.
so now there are 5 of us here tonight, correct?
Correct.
And we're looking for 2 more? Or 1 more?
All right, stick with my math for a second.
All right,
We're a 9-member committee.
okay, well, we're looking for a lot more.
Yeah,
All
so so we have 5 at-large members, 2 of which are here, Denise and Mark. We have 2 at-large members, Jen Donato and Anurana Kemka, who are still on the Neary Building Committee until June 30th, unless they resign sooner. We also have an open select board seat, which they're going to take care of next week. That's our missing link.
So that makes 8, right?
That makes it, well, basically, the easiest way to summarize it is we need 3 at-large members
Right,
going into the next year.
Do we anticipate that the 2 current ones are not going to want
They've
to be?
already indicated they don't want to be reappointed.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
so
Yeah.
then we are looking for 3 at large.
Correct. At least the townhouse does forward applications as they come in. We're in good shape so far, is what based on some of the names I've seen come through in terms of their expertise. And I'll call them newcomers to committees, which I think is even better. All right, is there any other business anyone wants to conduct? All right, I appreciate everyone meeting on short notice. Good conversation. I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. Roll call vote. Roger,
Yes.
Denise,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
and I as well. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you, Becky, Keith, and Greg, especially.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
All right,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Good night.